Hello! In this tutorial, I am going to show you how to find federal legislative history on Congress.gov. But first, what is Congress.gov? Well, it's the official website for U.S. federal legislative information. It's created by the Library of Congress using data from the House of Representatives, Senate, Government Publishing Office, the Congressional Budget Office, and the Congressional Research Service. And it's really pretty up to date because it's usually updated the morning after a session adjourns. So it's a really great resource for your legislative history and current legislative history. And so when you visit the Congress.gov website, you're going to find a search bar right here at the top of the page. It defaults to searching the current Congress. However, if you want to search all Congresses, you can change that drop down to do that. You can also search by source. So if you want to search legislation, committee materials, the congressional record, members, or nominations, you can change your choice over here and then run your search. You're also going to notice above that search bar, there is an advanced search option, and the advanced search is always your friend. I always recommend the advanced search, but especially on government websites because there's always so much content on these websites that just a basic search is going to give you too many results to actually be useful. You're just going to be overwhelmed with content. So the more you can do to narrow your search in the beginning, the better off you're going to be. So when you go into that advanced search, you have a lot of options. First, you can narrow by what Congress you want to search. Again, it defaults to the current one, but you have all of the other Congresses that you can choose from. And if you click on the more, you'll get even more of the older Congresses. Moving down, you can also search by legislation and law numbers. So if you have your House bill number, your Senate bill number, your House resolution number, the public law number, whatever you have, if you have a citation, you can pop that in here and be taken to that piece of legislation. You can also run a keyword search by using the words and phrases option. So if you maybe don't have a citation, but you're looking for bills on a certain topic, you may want to use that. You can narrow by what type of legislation you're looking for. Are you looking for House bills? Are you looking for Senate bills? Are you looking for some kind of combination of the two? Moving down, you can also look by policy areas or by legislative subject terms. So you can narrow again by topic. You can also narrow by the action or the status of a piece of legislation, as well as who sponsored a piece of legislation and committees. You're also going to notice as I was scrolling down through this search page, this menu over on the right hand side followed me all the way down. But if you know I want to run a words and phrases search, or I just want to look at sponsors, you can quickly jump to that area in the form by using the menu over on the right hand side. Going back to the home page, there's a few other things I want to point out. First, you're going to have some links over here on the right. One is legislation. So if you're looking specifically for legislation on Congress.gov, you can click on the legislation tab. And now when you search, you're just searching legislation. Again, it defaults to the current Congress, but you can change that using your filters over on the left-hand side, and you have some additional filters you can use to narrow your search of the legislation. Moving right along, you will also find the congressional record on Congress.gov, and this is updated daily. So you'll find the most recent version of the record on Congress.gov, but you will also find past issues. They do have the record on here from 1873 to the present, so you have full access to the congressional record here on Congress.gov. There's never any reason to pay for access to the congressional record. And so you can find an issue by date, or if you have an actual citation, you can click on enter the date, the year, and the page number, so you can pull your actual citation. You can browse the congressional record by date, and there is even an index to the congressional record available here, so you can search the index to find entries if that's how you want to search. And if you're following a piece of legislation, you can even set up alerts so that you can see whenever anything is published in the congressional record about a piece of legislation. There's also a link up here for committees, and you may be able to find committee hearings on the committee's websites, so that can be helpful. And there's also a members tab so that you can find all the members of the current Congress. And so maybe if you're proposing a piece of legislation and you want to kind of scope out who would be the best person to sponsor that piece of legislation, knowing who all the members are, that can be really helpful as well. Moving on down, another section here is this bill searches and list. So you can browse House bills and Senate bills by sponsor. You can also see which bills were recently introduced. Um, and you also have a link to browsing the public laws. And this is really helpful when you're doing legislative history because if you have your statute and you go down to your history note, you have your public laws that formed that statute. So it's really easy to do your legislative history once you have those public law numbers, and you always have those when you have your statute. So I definitely want to show you this. So if you click on your public laws link, and then on this page, they've defaulted to the most current Congress, but I can browse by Congress, and they go back to the 82nd Congress. But let's say I'm looking for a piece of legislation. I have the public law number, and it came from the 109th Congress. So I would just click the 109th Congress. Then these are in here in chronological order, so I can quickly browse down and find my public law number. So if I am looking for Public Law 109-103. If that was my citation in the history note at the end of my statute, I just scroll on down, and here I have Public Law 109-103. I can get a text file of this public law, and I can get a PDF of this public law, so I can actually read the full public law in context. But then right next to that, I have information about the bill. So I know this was a House bill, and it was House Bill 2419. And I can click on the bill number and get even more information about the bill. And then this is what the bill entry looks like on Congress.gov, and it's really laid out nice and easy. So the first thing you get is a quick overview of the bill. It'll tell you who sponsored the bill, which committees it was assigned to. You have quick links to the reports that came out of it. You can find when the latest action was, and you can see this became law, and it has that link back to the public law number. You can find the roll calls, and then there's this nice little tracker here, so it can tell you where the bill is at in the process or where it finished in the process. So was it introduced and then it just died? This would be highlighted. Did it pass the House? Did it pass the Senate? Resolving differences to the president, and this one actually became a law. So that's what's highlighted, and that's where we can see this is where this bill is at in the process. It's an actual law now. But if you're looking at recently introduced and current legislation and current bills that are being discussed, this tracker is really helpful in following where the bill is at in the process. But then moving on down, you have some additional tabs. So you have summary tabs. And so the summary is of the bill itself, so the actual public law. But a lot of times there is a drop down, and so you can find summaries for other items, including the conference reports, how the bill was amended, how it was introduced, and things like that. And the bill summaries are authored by the Congressional Research Service. If you click on the text tab, you're going to find links to the various versions of the public law and all the bills. So all those amended bills, you can find those here. So again, that's really important when you're doing legislative history because you can see how this bill was amended along the way, which may signal some of the intent behind its drafting and what they were seeking to accomplish. Next, you have an Actions tab, and so you can see what actions have been taken with your bill and when. You also have a Titles tab, so this will tell you what the short title is for the bill and what the short title is for the actual final law. There's an entire tab devoted to amendments. And here you're going to find all the amendments to this bill, and you do have filters over on the left-hand side to help you narrow this down if you need to. Some bills are heavily amended, and there may be a lot of versions here, so the filters can be helpful. There's a co-sponsors tab, so if there were any co-sponsors to the bill, you would find that information here. You have a committees tab, and so this will tell you which committees this bill was assigned to. And again, this is another place where you will find those reports. And then finally, you have a related bills tab, and as the name suggests, these are bills that were related to this bill in some way. And it'll tell you the relationship, and these are procedurally related, so those may be important to go look at as well when you're doing your legislative history. And so a lot of information here on Congress.gov. It's really a great place to do your federal legislative history. It's easy to search and it's laid out really well. And that is it for this tutorial. As always, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. You can email us, call us, or stop by and see us.